Welcome to the Bassmaster Studios, and man, after a long break, you start the Elite Series season back up at Lake Eufaula in Alabama. We knew it was going to be something worth watching. What a great event, and we've got the guy that probably thought it was the best event of the year so far, Buddy Gross, our 2020 champion from Lake Eufaula. Buddy, how are you?
Good, man. I'm glad to be here, too. Thank you for having me on.
Buddy, it's probably been a busy time for you since Saturday afternoon at the weigh-in. I knew when we were doing Bassmaster Live and you're like, I'm guessing we're live right now because my phone is just buzzing or ringing in my box. You could tell something was going on, and that's probably got to be a great feeling for someone coming from 10th on the final day when all the boats start showing up and the cameras jump in.
Man, it was crazy. I was all alone, had no love all week, and then all of a sudden I see Davey, and I seen him early, and he said, "Hey, how's it going, buddy?" I said, "Well, I've only got one," and he didn't no more get out of sight. I caught a 5-pounder, and then I did it good and caught another one, and all of a sudden Davey pulls back up with a camera girl in there, and I was like, "This is going to be pretty cool here." So we just kept fishing, and the more we fished, the more people that showed up.
Well, the timing couldn't have been better. Ashley jumps in your boat, catches that 6-pound, 13-ouncer on camera, and then from there, it just seemed like it was the Buddy Gross show. Every 30 minutes to an hour, there was a really, really important fish getting caught, and that was something that was interesting. When you get in that rotation, whether it's the same brush pile or the same bait or a rotation of it, when you get in that groove offshore, it just seems like the decisions are going right for Buddy Gross.
Yeah, it did. You know, I kind of figured that deal out on the second day, and the blessing was for the last day of the tournament is anything I caught before 10 o'clock was a bonus, because all the fish that I was really catching, the quality fish, come after 10. So when I started catching some a little earlier, I was like, man, we may have a shot at this, and it just kept, like a snowball effect. It just kept getting better.
So day 4 was obviously the crowning day, the 27-11 day, incredible final bag. But I want to take it back to day 1, 16 pounds and change, 43rd place, below the cut line. We didn't know what we were expecting at Lake Eufaula. We knew that there was going to be some heavyweights at the top, but we didn't know what it was going to look like down the leaderboard. For it to be 17 pounds to make the top 40, you were probably like, I've got to switch something up. Or did day 1 go well, it just not execute right?
Yeah, day 1, I had the bites to be exceptionally well. I just didn't execute real well. I get the bright idea that I'm going to wear my life jacket and get up and down 400 times, and I left my lanyard hooked up on one fish and reeled my lanyard up, and I had a 7-pounder jumping in front of the boat for like 3 minutes while I got it unhooked. So I had opportunities. I just didn't do a good job at executing on the first day.
Well, obviously for you, you're a guy who says, hey, I'm an offshore fisherman. If I can find a pattern or a school or an area that I can do that, I'd much rather do that than be up on the bank. So this had to be probably good for you. I want to know, how many casts did you make in practice, or was it all day, every day, graphing and finding what you needed to do on your units?
I had got, I had went down pre-practice before it went off limits, and I had found several hundred, like 300 brush piles. So when I got there, I determined that I was going to fish pretty hard the first day to see if I could find any quality, and it didn't take long. So as soon as I found the quality, I started trying to find more of the same type areas and same type of stuff. So most of my tournament practice was idling. I get bored every now and then and go fish, but it was mostly looking.
So for you, what was the difference in your brush piles than the other ones? There are tens of thousands of brush piles on Lake Eufaula, but what was the key ingredient on those brush piles? Obviously, they probably had to be a certain region of the lake or a certain depth. So break that down on what you were looking for to know it was a good brush pile.
I tried to put them in areas where I thought the fish had been spawning out behind it. So I was trying to find transition areas, like, where that stage up going in or coming out, whatever they were doing when we got there. Because I thought we were going in the spring, so I was looking for pre-spawn places, but a pre-spawn place will also turn into a post-spawn, so I was very fortunate on that. And, with the series tournament being there before we got there, it kind of helped because you had so many locals in it. I think they freshened up a lot of that brush, and I got very lucky and found a few fresh ones. And fish will come from, a mile away, it seems like, to go to a fresh brush pile, and I had a few of those. And some of the key ones I found in pre-practice were gone. So those boys are like beavers down there. They do a lot of work, and it's hard to keep up with them if you're not really a local.
So we know we talked about it on the final day on Bassmaster Live on ESPN2. We talked about that you had made a key bait change from either day 2 to day 3 or day 3 going into the final day, switching to that prototype Nichols jig. So tell me, what was the switch? What was the bait you were using, and why that jig ended up being the player on the final day for you?
I was using a worm. I was using an old monster worm, and I was using a mag trick worm. I was kind of alternating between the two, and they were catching some fish, but I just didn't feel like I was a fishing. The fish that I was catching, I was throwing swim bait through them also. And the first day was all swim bait fish. Second day, the first quarter of the day was swim bait, and then it just seemed like I picked that jig up, and my bites were more aggressive. They were more frequent, and I just kind of stuck with it and alternated through. It was wound up to be the primary and alternated everything else through, but the jig just seemed to be what they wanted.
So for that jig, the photos and what it looks like it's almost like a hybrid jig. It's got a head shape that could look like a variation of one thing or another, but it wasn't a football jig or things that you'd expect to fish offshore. So if you can give away some details of what that looks like, what is the reason that jig style or the weight that you were using translated so well of getting through that brush?
Like it was a 3/4 ounce jig, and what the whole deal is, when I tell you, we call it a craft jig because we've been crafting on it for a little bit. It's a prototype, but it was something that I've been wanting to do. Lighten the weed guard up, lighten the hook up a little bit. I'm still using an extra heavy rod because I'm throwing straight 100% fluorocarbon, P-line on my casting, but I'm throwing a long ways. I'm throwing 80 to 100 feet away from the boat, just trying to keep them from not knowing I'm there. And when you use a heavy hook and a heavy weed guard, it's hard to get the penetration. So I've been doing this with football jigs for over a year now, and now I'm doing it with this jig, and it's working for me on hookup ratios. I still lost some fish this week, but it was more or less, but I was out of position or on the back side of the brush. But dude, this thing really gets a good hookup ratio, and that's what I was after.
So for you obviously, we saw you looking on Bassmaster Live at your Humminbird 360 and whatnot. We broke it down what those images look like for fans that might not have experience with that. So for you, when you're looking at your Humminbird 360 or your graphs, how far do you want to stay away from the brush? Because you're saying you're making 80 to 100 foot casts, but do you want that to be 20 feet past the brush pile and you drag it through it? Do you want the brush pile to be halfway between the end of your cast and the boat? Where's the prime place to be able to stay far enough back, but also close enough to be able to catch the fish?
I left my brush piles between 60 and 80 feet because those rings were 20 feet apart. On the 360, you got rings. And when it does that, I can actually tell how far away they are. So I kept most of them I tried to keep it at the 80 feet range. So it was just, I knew how far to cast and how hard to throw it at that point. But it was all about staying away from it. But sometimes I'd get too close and I'd still get a bite. But it seemed like the quality fish, I stayed further away.
So, buddy, obviously everyone wants to think, hey, I've got a shot. If I can fish today, I have a shot. And that's been true. But if we took 2019 and 2020 away, not many people have came from the last person in the cut to win an event. Just so happens 2 times last year with Jamie Hartman and Micah Frazier, they did it, and then you did it at Lake Eufaula. But going into that final day, 7.5 pounds back, I know Eufaula is pumping out some big fish, but what did you really think you had a good shot to win, or did you think you at least knew you could move into the top 5 pretty easily?
I thought I could move up. Did I think I don't get me wrong, when I go out, I'm fishing for big ones every time, but I had no idea I'd make it that far, and I just went fishing. I was in 10th place. I couldn't go down, so I knew where I stood at that point, and the only thing there was to do was go up, so I just went fishing. And I started off on new brush that morning. I had never fished before, and told my marshal, I said, it probably won't have no action until 10:30, 11 o'clock, so we got a while to wait. But when I didn't start getting bid on some of that new stuff, I said, we need to get back in the area that's got me where I'm at. And when I did, it just started happening.
So for you that's intriguing to me, because there was a couple different bite windows, and when you watch the show, or if you go back and watch live, you'll be able to see this. But the morning time, it seemed like those offshore brush piles, those guys who had those spots would fire out to an early lead. midday when the sun is brightest, those shallow anglers would start to rise to the top of the leaderboard, and then the afternoon there would be a big fish to be caught by one of the offshore. It would just seem like it was kind of a fair game in the afternoon. So for you, why was it backwards? Why did you not get fish on your brush until that midday period when other people had been, they wouldn't have a bite after 10 o'clock?
I really think it was because the fish were, and the guys that were around me, both the Drews, they were catching some fish late too. But I never went to the grass for sure, and I just didn't get many bites out there. But I just thought if there was a slim chance to catch a big one, I wanted to be there, so I stayed. But long story short, when the sun come up, I felt like it drew them tighter to the brush. In low light conditions, I think they're roaming around the brush. I mean, when you make a brush pile cast, there might be 4 more that you could cast at if you just moved your boat 10 feet. So I think they were just roaming in between them, looking around, and then whenever the sun gets the highest, they start looking for one to settle around and stay put, and it made it easier for us to find them.
So some of those guys who caught them early probably had a spot that had multiple brush piles on it, whereas your spot might have a single solitary big brush pile, or that one that's going to congregate fish from far away. But for you, on that final day, when did you start to feel, hey, I've got a shot? Obviously, when you guys don't know what Bass Track says, you don't have that leaderboard going, but you know, man, I have to catch 25 pounds to have a shot. And when you start to catch some fish and boats start showing up, Davey Height starts showing up with a camera, with camera lady Ashley, and she jumps in the boat. Is that the point when you're like, I've got to be making some kind of waves in the leaderboard for them to show up?
When the camera girl got in the boat, I thought maybe at first it's just because I was starting to make a move and they hadn't been around me. But then when Davey didn't leave and then the other boats start showing up, I've won some majors before and I knew what it felt like. And it felt like I was making a run at it. And it helped, to be honest with you. It gave me the confidence to stay put, don't go look for new stuff, keep doing what I know. And it helps to know that you actually got a shot like that. So, and a lot of us in the top 10 were seeing each other. I mean, I'd say half of us were seeing each other, and they'd see them following me, and I'm sure it kind of changes the mental game for them. But it's pretty neat. I mean, once I knew I had a shot, I really bared down and started fishing hard.
Well, you don't know this probably, but with 15 minutes or so left, Scott Canterbury caught a 3.5 to 4 pounder to Cole, a 3 pounder, and we were like,
that's a big one.
It's so close. Right. That could have been the fish to win it. Did you, when you were idling in, did you feel like you even needed to ask Scott or Caleb or any of those top guys what if they had a good day, or did you just not want to hear it?
I didn't want to hear it. I mean, I had did all I could do. If you catch 28 pounds on the last day after 2 weeks of beatdown, you've done something pretty special. And I was proud of what I had. I knew I did my job, and I just lived with what it was.
Well, buddy, one of the last questions I want to ask you is, hey, you're a 2-time FLW Tour champion. You've done it in just a short 4, 5, 6 year window. For you to win an Elite Series event, your second event ever on the Bassmaster Elite Series, what does this, I mean, you're obviously confident in yourself. You know you're a good angler, but what does this win tell you and the encouragement that it brings?
It tells me I'm where I'm supposed to be. Sometimes when you're doing it like I am, I'm a 47-year-old rookie with a Bassmaster Elite. I have an 11-year-old daughter sitting right behind me and a wife who supports me sitting beside me. And it's up to me to make sure we got food on the table. And I am not independently wealthy. I don't own a business here. I fish for a living. And fortunately, I fished the Opens last year just trying to make some extra money and wound up doing pretty good and seen a window where I might make the Elites. It was not a design. It was, I think it was a path the Lord set in front of us, and we've just been making the best of our opportunities, and I love it where I'm at. I mean, I have every bit of the respect for all the guys on Bass and the opportunity to fish with these guys.
So, buddy, if you don't mind, I want to hear that story one more time. I talked to you during the 3-month hiatus with the COVID situation going on, and you talked about how when you qualified to fish professionally, that you took that chance in what was an unstable, unsturdy time in your life, job-wise. What kind of risk does that mean, you know, taking that kind of jump, putting it all on your fishing, and then for you to come through and it's got to be really fulfilling?
My wife and I both were actually working at the same place, and there were some changes being made in the ownership, and I left and started. I had just qualified for the tour, and I quit my job, And it wasn't because of the tour, it was because it was time to move on. And she asked me what we're going to do that night at home. And I said, I don't really know. She said, well, you qualified to fish the tour. Why don't you try it? And I said, we really don't have the money. So then we started talking about it and leaped out on faith with less than $5,000 and a few sponsors. We went fishing for a living.
That's an incredible story, and now you are a 3-time professional winner and a new Elite Series champion. Buddy Gross, congratulations, 84.5 pounds, a 27-11 bag to cap out the final day at Lake Eufaula. What an incredible day, one that you won't forget. And you've got the video, you've got the photos, and you've got the trophy to prove it, and your wife has the check also to show that off.
That's right. We still got the trophy in the back of the seatbelt on, riding it around to all of our sponsors wanting pictures made with it. So it's been a pretty cool day and lots of phone calls. And, man, we're just loving it right now. It's been great.
Well, that's awesome. If Leanne and your daughter want to wave, say hey, and show their support on this interview, feel free. We appreciate the Bass family.
Well, there's Leanne.
Hello.
Bella's asleep. So she fell asleep. We just picked her up at the pool.
Good, good. Well, hey, Buddy Gross, congratulations on your first ever Elite Series trophy. Obviously, there's going to be more in store. People were probably not happy that you were at the top of the leaderboard for part of the tournament at the St. John's, and now they're really not going to be happy that you made your dent on it at the second event. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Buddy Gross, first-time Bassmaster Elite Series champion. He did it in dramatic fashion on the final day at Lake Eufaula, 27-11. Hey, it makes me feel good. I picked him to win. That's the only time I'm going to brag about it. I'm done. Okay, we're done with that. Buddy Gross, champion of the DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula.